Hello, cozy detectives, and welcome to Blanket Fort Files. I'm Joy,
And I'm Larissa.
and we're here to report on all things comfy and cozy.
So, if you listened to our last episode, we were talking about all things Gilmore Girls and our least favorite episodes of the seasons. And your girls can talk. We clearly really love Gilmore Girls. The episode was getting very, very long, so we decided to cut it in half. So, this is part 2 where we're going to dive into the later half of the show so your little ears could get a break. So enjoy the next part of Gilmore Girls. Getting to season 4, least favorite for you.
I don't like Die Jerk.
That's my least favorite too. One of my least overall in the entire show. I skip that one most of the time.
Yeah, I think also this is in my recollection, this is the season where I start kind of like, I guess, struggling with Rory as a character in certain aspects of things. I think it starts really strong. Like, I think there's episodes in it that I really like, but I don't know. I feel like
there's a quote from Gilmore to say that they'll say sometimes, Rory cut her hair and she cut her brain.
like literally.
And I feel like that very much is what happens.
Yeah, like there's times where like if Rory's hair is really short, I'm just like, oh, this episode's gonna be only okay. Like I'm not gonna love it as much. But there are some really strong episodes to it, but I just feel like Die Jerk overall, like I just don't like it feels like Rory's going through a rough time in her head and she's just kind of taking it out on like the ballerina specifically, but like the play overall, and she's feeling insecure about her writing, and so she just like pulls to the mean part of things. And I feel like that kind of shows like people can do that, like if they're hurting, like it's like the hurt people vibes of things. But I don't like it. I don't like to like, does she really learn from that? I don't really know. I think there's certain things where like if she felt more confident in her writing overall, I feel like later on when Mitchum's like, I don't like think that you got it, I think she would have fought back more. But I feel like this could have been a good opportunity for her to learn that lesson without going through that. And instead she just kind of ends it neutral. Yeah. Like I don't like the meanness of it. What about you? What don't you like about that one?
Yeah, you hit all of my same points. And yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know the episodes by the titles, this is where Rory writes the really mean article about the ballerina. But then she also continues into, we're left to believe at the end, where she goes to that one musical that she's going to be mean then too. And I couldn't remember exactly what happens. I know there's some Jason stuff because I did lobster thermidor for this episode because he comes over for Friday night dinner. And out of all of Lorelai's boyfriends, Jason is my least favorite.
Yeah, same.
So
I don't love Christopher either, but I feel like the history there helps a little bit. Whereas Jason, I don't get the why of it. I don't get the connection. Whereas Christopher, I can get the connection.
Yeah, to me, I think part of it is chemistry, I think, with the actors. Even though I don't think Chris is a good guy to Lorelai, I can get her appeal. There's that history. But I think the chemistry between Lauren and David is unmatched by any other pairing on this show. Like, they just keep up with each other so well. For me, with Jason, I don't think their chemistry is there. To me, it always felt like Lorelai was with Jason to spite her parents.
I was going to say, to get
literally,
yeah.
Right. That's literally why she agrees to go out with him and Ted Koppel's big night out. And then it just kind of maintains that. So, I think this episode falls right before that. So, they're hinting at that they might end up together, which I don't like. So, I think that also lent itself to my overall dislike of this episode because I know it's coming with Jason. But let's get into favorites for season 4.
I once again had 2, and this is when I started writing down the titles, so I know this is right. So I have either the Lorelai's First Day at Yale, or the Festival of Living Art. I really like too. So those are my 2 favorites.
When you said last episode or last season with the quirky events, I had a feeling that Living Art would be a top one for you too.
Yeah, I like the buy-in of the town. Besides You Jump, I Jump Jack, if from my memories, well, actually, also the Hay Bale Maze is a really good one. But I feel like they just again created that whole world of this. I like the whole town buys into it.
Mm-hmm.
I like that there's just like Kirk gets his moment, which is just hilarious and like so
So
funny.
good.
I also love Lorelai's first day or the Lorelai's first day at Yale because I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of hard because this is like one of the moments like right before I start not like this is right before like Rory cuts her hair and I'm like, why would you do that? Stop. But like I feel like seeing the transition and seeing Lorelai's in the best way possible, like really extroversion really helps in this because she's able to like bring the floor together. All of the girls are hanging out, they're all having fun. I like the camaraderie aspect of that. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's funny with Luke and bringing the
The
truck
truck.
back and forth and the
Mm-hmm.
mattress back and forth, and it feels like such a pivotal moment in life. And being
Mm-hmm.
behind Rory in like my own life, like I am younger than the actress, so seeing her go before me, it was kind of like a crazy thing to be like, okay, someday I will go to college and like what is that like? And like getting into
Mm-hmm.
like what's that world going to be? And then you get to go to these classes and you're like an adult. And so I feel like those two episodes were pretty much neck and neck. And I have a couple of them like
Mm-hmm.
that, like especially in like season one, they were neck and neck. But well, why did you like Lorelai's first day at Yale the best?
For me, kind of exactly what you said. I really like the mother daughter aspect in that episode, but I love how this was the start of a new chapter for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Rory starts college, and Lorelai starts this new chapter of being alone for the first time
Yeah.
since ever.
15.
Um,
Yeah.
since and that end shot where she's just at the house alone is
Yeah.
beautiful but heartbreaking. This is the first season where I don't have any tens. So this episode
Mm.
is a 9. And I think the main reason it didn't get a 10, I don't like the howling scene.
Aw.
I
Is it
get
'cause it's
it, and
cringy?
it's cute. It's particularly, not to be mean, but Alexis Bledell's little
Oh.
like baby voice is where she really starts getting that weird baby Rory voice. So
Mhm.
that kept it from a perfect 10.
That's
But
funny.
overall, I do love the episode. I love where they initially say goodbye and then,
Yeah.
oh, just kidding, I want to give you this stuff. Then they say goodbye. Oh, wait, mom, come back. And then they have the real goodbye. So I think in terms of doing that transition to the next half of Gilmore Girls in this next chapter, I
Mhm.
think it's such a strong episode for that.
Yeah. Yeah. What were your rankings?
So overall, with season 4, um, it is a kind of mid-season for me. I love
Yeah.
the behind the scenes of seeing the dragonfly coming together. Like I said, I don't like Jason at all. I don't like the Luke and Nicole
Ugh,
married,
me
not
neither.
married, divorce plot. It's so pointless. It just felt like with Nicole and with Jason, the writers were running out of ideas to keep Luke and Lorelai from being
I
together.
get that,
And
yeah.
I feel like while that is frustrating, it's just also like be a little more creative to me in why we're
Mm.
keeping them apart. I like aspects of Rory discovering her new self in college. I like for most of the season, she's not with anyone. I think it's so important to be single at
Yeah.
certain aspects in your life so you can do that growing, especially after Jess ended in such a rough way.
Yeah.
Then, of course, you have the Dean stuff towards the end, which is so awful with the cheating and all of that.
Yeah, I've got like twos.
Um,
I was like, hate.
but but I will say, Raincoats and Recipes is such a hard, was a really hard episode for me to rank because
Mm.
I love seeing the dry run of the Dragonfly
Yep.
and Lorelai and Spooky achieving their dream.
Yep.
We get to see Luke and Lorelai's first kiss. And I
Yep.
think dramatically, the womp of Dean and Rory is such a
Mm.
gut punch in comparison to the
Yeah.
rest of the episode. But because of it being an affair and all of that, it's just like,
Yep.
ugh.
Yep. Yep. I know that's the hardest thing. I think again, it's hard because like I'm trying to rank this as now joy, but then there's part of me that's ranking it as like previous joy.
Mhm.
And for raincoats and recipes, I have that probably as like a 4 or 5, if I'm remembering correctly, like a 4.5, because
Mhm.
I loved the inn aspect of it. And this is a show for me overall, truthfully, that even opened up that possibility of hospitality, because I feel like it's not something that in that time period, and maybe I'm just remembering incorrectly, but around that time period, I don't remember it seeing shown as much on TV as
Mhm.
a possible career. And for me, that ended up being my career for quite a while. Like in the rooms division, basically the Lorelai of the hotel in a lot of aspects. Like people used to, when I told them what I did, they would be like, "Oh yeah, you're like that one girl from that show," and that was like my favorite compliment ever. Like I loved it. I was like, "Please
That's
mean
like
Lorelai." Like,
no, I get that. Anytime
mhm.
that someone calls me the real life Suki, I'm like,
Yeah,
yes, because that's who I
yeah,
relate to the most, not just for the cooking, but
yeah,
also personality and stuff too.
yep, yep. So I feel like that was such a high, but I remember just like the crash at the very like last quarter of
Mhm.
the episode, and I feel like that's where it just like really brought me down, because I felt like again, like that selfishness of Rory in a lot of aspects
Mhm.
really just pulled so much down, and like the heartbreak of Lorelai when she like has just realized what happened. It just, oh, I just remember that like breaking me in watching
Yeah.
that. Like I don't remember many times that I would have like cried on the show specifically, but I just remember like feeling devastated by that.
Yep. I
Oh,
think
rough.
ended up giving that episode an 8
Oh,
purely for not purely, there's a lot of aspects I love, but I think in terms of storytelling and
yeah.
how Amy
Oh, it's
did that and
good.
just the reveal,
Yeah.
like, this is TV and I'm in it.
It's so good.
But overall, season 4 was a 4.9. So far has been the lowest rated season for me. Where did you put it?
Mine was a 5.9. I thought it was going to be a
Okay.
5. I think my like Jason vibes of things. And like that
Yeah.
last episode, I was like expecting it to be like super like mid. So it actually was a little bit higher than I thought.
Yeah.
Which is actually a little different for me than season 5. I thought it was going to be higher and ended up being not as high as I thought.
Yeah. Mine, yeah, so I said mine, but I keep forgetting these, but the writer for Lorelai's first day of Yale was Daniel.
Mm.
So it's been kind of funny so far. It was
Like half and
Amy,
half.
Daniel, Amy, Daniel for my favorites. So
Very
I do
funny.
love me some Paladinos, but let's get into season 5. My least favorite for season 5 is We've Got Us a Pippi Virgin.
Mm. Yep.
This is a double date with Rory and Dean and Luke and Lorelai. They go to the red, white, and black, red. What is it? Why can't I think? Black and white and red movie theater. I could not think. To see Pippi Longstocking. They're singing along. This is where that howling comes back when they sing along to the theme song. Oh,
Yeah,
I
I don't know
can't
why she
stand
does that
it.
like higher pitched. I don't know. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know why. Maybe it's like
But
Lex's nervousness or something. Because they're
maybe
like, please howl. And she's like, I don't normally howl. What do I, how do you
right.
howl? I don't know.
um, and even though I don't like season 5 Dean at all, I really don't like how Luke treats him in this episode.
Yeah.
Um, and also kind of harken back to season 1 when Rory and Dean break up for the first time, and there's that scene where Luke sees Dean about to come into the diner. He's like, "You can't go in here," and they start almost
Yeah.
like wrestling in the
Well, like,
street.
who's the adult right now? Like, what's
Right.
happening?
I'm like, Luke, you are a grown man.
Yeah.
Why are you bullying Dean, who is now technically legally an adult, but is still what,
So weird.
19, maybe
Yeah.
20? So that's just strange. It's such an awkward episode, and then the Bop It scene is
Yeah.
super cringe.
It does bring
So
us the Bop It, though, which I do like
True.
as a thing,
True.
but everything else is awkward about it.
Right. So yeah, just overall, I don't like that episode. What was your least favorite for 5?
I wrote down Luke and Lorelai break up, and I think that's episode 14.
Yeah, say something.
Yeah, because my brain was like, why did I just write that? I was just like, you will know. I think it's just heartbreaking. Now, I will say, I don't know if I've specifically thought about the way that you had phrased it earlier about how, like, sometimes the drama bringing, well, like, I've thought about it, but, like, I haven't put it in those
Mhm.
words, but, like, the drama bringing the storyline forward. And I do think that that does that here. But I think just, like, I think the thing that frustrated me the most about it is I felt like, okay, we're in season 5. We just got together. Like, we're good to go. And that's where, like, that will they, won't they, once they get together bugs me. Because I'm like, okay, well,
Mhm.
if you break up, like, why continue to get back together to break up to get back together to break up?
Yeah.
And so for me, I felt like in the moment, this was like a closing of that. And I'm like, well, now I don't know where this storyline goes. Like, where are these characters going? I felt like we've walked up to this moment of like, these are it. Like, this is like the end game couple. And then now they're just not the end game. And I know that like within a few episodes, they're back together. But I think, and maybe this is just because like me personally probably is a little bit too quick to do that. If in a relationship it's like, no thank you, I'm like, okay, well then thank you next. But like, I feel like it hurt a little bit. Like, obviously you can heal relationships, and so I feel like I'm saying the opposite sides of like both coins. So like, I hope this, my heart's coming across in this, but I just felt like it hurt to feel like after that it would take a long time to heal that trust that was already there and already
Mhm.
built up. And I feel like even looking forward to like season 6 and season 7, just seeing that like up and down of it, I felt like that's where that really started. And so it
No, I
kind of bummed me
agree.
out.
And this is where I kind of alluded to this previously, but while I do obviously love Luke and Lorelai, I don't feel like you can watch a show and not. But I just don't think that they really do a good job of showing us, it's that show don't tell, but
Yeah.
showing us that they're actually a strong couple,
Yeah.
because they get off course so easily and so
Yeah.
frequently. And so I rated that episode a little bit higher, um, because I think Lauren Graham's acting in that
So
episode
good.
is
Yeah.
incredible. And I love when Rory comes and
Yeah.
borrows from Logan and sets up the TV. But for me, I think storytelling wise, and here's where I struggle. I don't know if we're supposed to believe or we're being told, oh, Luke and Lorelai are a good couple, or if Amy wanted us to realize they're actually not. And this is her kind of laying out the blueprint of they're actually not a good couple. And I want you to understand that without explicitly telling you that they're not. But I don't know really what her MO was. But
Yeah.
I think just from a story perspective, I definitely get that they just got together. Why are they breaking up already? But it's one of those things where this is the drama that I really like.
Hmm.
Um, and we'll get into that with the favorite episodes for sure.
Ooh,
Which I
interesting.
guess we can go ahead and do.
Yeah,
So
do
my
it, do it.
favorite for 5 is actually the one right before it, at Wedding Bell Blues.
Oh, okay.
This got a 10 from me.
Mm.
I just love how this episode is laid out, from the extravagant wedding to, Rory and Logan having their first kiss. We have this big blow up with Chris and Luke, Luke and Lorelai, Lorelai and Emily. So again, those are the drama aspects of the show that I really enjoy. I love, love, love when Richard sings the little
So cute.
Mary Bill song, like, for one night only,
Yeah.
my name is Bill, and this is our song. Like,
Yeah.
eat it up. I love it. I also really, really love Emily's little bachelorette party.
That's so cute.
And when she's like, she gets so drunk and she's like, Gypsy's here.
That's so cute. Yeah.
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 So I don't know. I think there's just so much of this episode that I don't know. For me, it has a little bit of everything of I love about the show. It has the townies. We get the family drama. We get Rory in relationships. We get some Luke and Lorelai storyline. So to me, I gave this a 10 because I'm like, this is everything to me of why I love Gilmore Girls.
Yeah, I could see that. I think, again, the adult drama is the thing that I don't love in certain
Mm-hmm.
times and moments. I think it really, like, again, the actors are doing a great job. I feel like it really pulls the storyline forward. I do love the Richard song too. That's really, really sweet. I think Lorelai and her mom, the drama there can like hit me a little different, and I don't love
Mm-hmm.
that as much. So my favorite episode was You Jump I Jump Jack, which is probably no surprise. It's my favorite episode in the whole series. It's the biggest stunt in the whole series.
Mm-hmm.
I think, again, that world building that like everybody's bought in. I the only thing that's like interesting is kind of thinking back. I don't love, which maybe this is just joy now, but I don't love just like the amount of money wasted. I don't know. It kind of bugs me a little bit.
Yeah,
But
no, for sure.
right. But if you kind of like take that part out of it, I feel like this is an interesting like thought process of like Rory about like having to make those decisions. I feel like she's really doing investigating, which is something that like she's talked about wanting to do for a really long time. So this gives her an opportunity to really like get into the
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote and like jump into this world and see like, well, what's going on here. Maybe part of it's the nostalgia of it. Now I am heavily focused on the Rory side of this episode, um, which I think is why, again, that's my favorite. But yeah.
Yeah. I used to always put this in like a top 3 for me, and I still really love it. I gave it a 9. I think because I was trying to zoom out, and like you said, you were focusing on the
Yeah.
Rory Logan aspect.
Out, not
And
as good.
there's also in this episode is Luke and Richard go golfing together, and it's just weird and awkward. And I think too, I do love the grandiose nature of the Life and Death Brigade event. I love that Logan has the dress for her and it's, perfect for her size. And I do love where he says, it's your choice if you want to, live your life and stuff. So I do love where we start to see him pushing her a little bit into those new personality characteristics. Um, and my some of this might also be influenced from listening to the podcast Gilmore Guys, and because I never really thought about this in terms of just like a practicality standpoint. From any time I'm like, oh, it's so cool they jump, but I'm like, if you just think about it logically, like what are they doing? Why are they just jumping from the scaffolding and
Yeah.
ball gown? So it does, like, I think visually it looks really cool, but if I sit down and think about kind of the same thing with the money aspect that
Yeah.
you talked about, I'm like, why do I love this so much? Like, I think it's cool and I do love it, but I just also want to know, like, why they're just jumping off of scaffolding with their ball gowns on. It's just a little silly.
Yeah. I feel like for me, like the phrase of like, you can live your life without like really living it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that aspect of it, like kind of like creating that, like a core
For
memory
sure.
and like creating something that like you will remember this when you get older. I feel like it's something that for like me personally, I really love the idea of. Now, again, why that specifically, meh, but I've always seen that as the reason why they did that. And yes, it's not
Mm-hmm.
very practical. And I don't really get why you would do the ball. I don't really get why you do the monkey mask either, to be honest. But
True. And the whole
who
ease
knows?
thing.
Yeah.
So, no, I definitely love this episode still. I think just if you sit down and focus in on certain
Yeah.
aspects of it,
100%.
it does get a little interesting. But talking about season 5 overall, so this was predicted to be my second favorite
Mm.
season. I know there is a lot of drama, which here I did it again. I forgot to mention the writer, but it's Amy, of course. So we're still following that pattern. But there actually aren't that many episodes that I truly dislike in season 5. If there
Mhm.
are, it was still like a middle of the road rating. There
Yeah.
is a lot of drama, but it's drama that I really enjoy. For me, like I said at the beginning, season 5, I call the Gilmore Girls Renaissance because I feel like after the mess of season
Yeah.
4, this is where they start to get their groove again. I like the introduction of Logan and what he does with Rory's character. I think
Yeah.
while she does become unlikable as the show goes on, I think it does take the show to a new area that it hasn't really before. And then obviously ending with the big blow up between Lorelai and Rory, I think it, as hard as it is to watch, I think from a story perspective, it was needed
Yeah.
because while they had fights before that lasted several episodes, we hadn't seen anything like that before, which is also funny because in the pilot, Lorelai says, Rory and I never fight, but literally the whole show is them fighting all of the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
But in terms of this level, I think it was, as hard as it is, I think it was needed to keep the show moving forward and just being a little more fresh.
Yeah. I agree. I feel like in a lot of this season, like that renaissance aspect of it too, even in like I appreciate a lot like we're really getting into the dragonfly in at this point. I feel like we're
Yes.
really seeing Lorelai and Suki hit their stride, which I really like. I feel like Lorelai's really understanding herself as, well, I guess not fully single, but like not kid in the house type of mom. I feel like that's a hard transition, and I feel like she's actually doing it pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Again, to me, it feels like the arguments, the disconnect between Lorelai and Rory feel very valid. And that's something too where this is even in the moment, I felt like Lorelai's side made more sense to me, where I felt like Rory's was just like rebellion for kind of rebellion's sake. Like obviously like she gets told something that she doesn't like, maybe you're not fit for this industry, but I feel like that's kind of, it could be a call to adventure of like she's like
Mm-hmm.
gonna refute that by stepping up even more and being like, no, I am, like I can be here and I'll prove it to you. Whereas when
Mm-hmm.
she shrinks back from it, I feel like it definitely moves the storyline forward, but I feel like again Rory's character bummed me out, I guess is the way to
Yeah.
say
No, I
that.
get that.
Um, but I definitely understand that renaissance, and I definitely agree with it too, because there's a lot of parts in this of Lorelai specifically that I really appreciate in this season.
Yeah, for sure. So I ended up giving this a 6.3, which
Mhm.
puts this as my highest rating season,
Oh.
which I honestly was surprised about because while I love Wedding Bell Blues, I love You Jump, I Jump, I was kind of surprised because I felt like there's a lot of seasons where I'm like, oh, I love all of these other episodes. But I think when you get to the average, I don't have too many very low rated episodes in 5. I think there's something that I enjoy about all of them. Um, but if I were to sit down, and I've always struggled to say my favorite season of Gilmore Girls, but I would have never just been like, yeah, season 5 is my favorite. But I think getting into this new groove of the show and
Hmm.
finding new stories to tell is what I really like about 5. And I think there's still a lot of really fun elements of it that I enjoy. Like you said, the Dragonfly and Suki and Lorelai really finding their stride. With the article coming out and that plot line, I think is
Yeah.
really cool because she's getting her moment.
Hmm.
So yeah, that was the surprise that I guess I'm a season 5 girly.
Oh, interesting. I have this as a 6.3. So I
Wow,
felt
we
like,
had the exact same rating then.
yeah, that's so funny. I thought it was going to be a 7. So And like in
Mm-hmm.
the remembering of it, I felt like it was higher, but I feel like maybe because there is more not strife, but like maybe disagreements and things like that, especially
Mm-hmm.
towards the end. My like cozy loving heart doesn't love it, so I dedefinitely ranked
That
those a
makes
little bit
sense.
lower, which I feel like is
Yeah.
what pulled this down lower than the 7 that I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Overall, I also like, even though it's hard, I do like the Richard and Emily conflict in this
Mm-mm.
season because I think, again, that was something that was kind of needed. We saw that a little bit in 2, but there wasn't a whole lot to their storyline outside of just their
Yeah,
relationships to the girls. And so I think getting their own storyline was something that was really important that we needed to see as well.
yeah, I definitely agree with that. I'm a little bit nervous for season 6 and 7. I feel like my brain's starting to glitch at an hour and 40.
Yes,
Oh,
least favorite episode.
okay, cool. Season 6. Okay. My least favorite episode is the finale. That was mine.
Mm.
I think just because the characters are given an opportunity to make one of two choices, and I feel like
Mhm.
the adults are just making like wild choices. Like,
Mhm.
I don't get how the choice is like we're kind of left on that. This is the cliffhanger of everything of like
Right.
kind of what's going on, what's not going on, what's going to happen type of a deal. But I just feel like Lorelai's choices really bum me out. And I feel like that's why
Mhm.
this made it so low. But I do like that the troubadours are in the town. That's kind of cute. Where like they're all coming there and everything. And then
Mhm.
Logan leaves for London. It just feels like, but he was mine first. You know what I mean? It gives me that similar
Yeah.
vibe, and I just don't like it.
Yeah, no, I know it's a least favorite for a lot of people. It's not a favorite of mine, but I did rate it a lot higher. And I don't know if this is influence. So Haley from Gilmore to say this is
Hmm.
her favorite episodes of the whole show.
Whoa.
So I don't know if just hearing her talking about it so
Yeah.
much has influenced my thought process on it. In fact, when I was on their podcast, we specifically talked a lot about this episode
Mhm.
and that big ultimatum fight because I kind of approach it also kind of in the same way that you do, not so much the cheating afterwards, but in that big fight, while for a lot of things, I don't think Luke handled things well with not telling Lorelai about April and keeping them apart. But for me, with Lorelai and presenting this ultimatum, I'm like, okay, if you really know Luke and you love
Yeah.
Luke, you would
Why are
not
you doing
present
that?
an
Yeah.
ultimatum to this man. He
Yeah.
needs so much time to process. Like, just think about how long it took y'all to get together. So I get frustrated with Lorelai,
Yeah.
and I get that she's hurt. I get that she wants him to act and to fight for her. But to me, I'm like, that's you not understanding. He needs
100%.
time to process.
Yeah.
Um, but I think for me, why I rated it so high is again, those like dramatic beats is what I really
Mm.
like. And then the Logan and Rory goodbye is so heartbreaking, but I really enjoy it. I really love the London party as well.
Yeah, that was
I think Rory's really cute in her little outfit. So,
yeah, I think that's the other thing is like the Lorelai's decisions, like obviously after, but even the decision to like present the ultimatum, it is the like,
mhm,
if you know this person, why would you do that? Like it doesn't
right.
make sense in the amount that you should know them by this point to present that as this and then like yeah. So I think that's also why like just Lorelai's decisions in
Yeah.
this overall brought that down so
No,
low for me.
that makes a lot of sense. For me, my least favorite is almost at the very opposite of the season. My least favorite is Fight Face.
I get that.
Um, I, while I understand Lorelai and Rory's conflict in this season, I feel like there's aspects of it that aren't executed very well. I think that big fight that they have on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Also, just the dialogue of it is not written as well. The "will you hurt me right back at you" like that just seems a little more sloppy in terms of that good fighting that I know that they can write for this show. While I do like TJ, I don't like where he just comes in and
So
destroys
unfair.
Lorelai's
Yeah.
house. So that's also in that. I don't like that Luke tells Rory that they're engaged when she comes by the diner. I think, again, that's something of like, you don't understand this relationship.
Yeah.
I don't know why he wouldn't tell her, or
Yeah.
why he would be the one to tell her, especially when he knows that they're not talking right now.
Yeah. It's not like
And then,
he didn't have to say that. I think that's the other thing. It's
mm-hmm,
like he says that like I know I shouldn't have been the one to say it. You should have. But also like, did you have to say it? Like
right.
she didn't know at
No one was
all.
forcing
So
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then also, I've never really understood Rory's annoyance with her community service hours. And
mhm,
we see her start to complain about that a lot in this season when she has to do the trash pickup.
yeah.
But when the judge says the amount and she's freaking out of how much it
Girl,
is,
you lucky.
I think it evens out. I did the math one time and I don't remember off the top of my head, but I want to say it's less than 10 hours
It's
a
8.
week.
In my brain, I
Yeah.
remember 8, and I wonder if I did the math at that
Hmm.
point or if it's just like it's not that much. Like
It's
total
really not. She acts like it's impossible and I have to get a job and
8
we put
hours.
more
No.
time to this
Yeah,
podcast in a week than
yeah.
she has to do community service. So, and
Honestly,
just her when she first gets to the trash pickup and she gets in that fight with that girl,
it's
it's,
weird.
yeah, I just really don't like that episode. But
Yep.
overall, with 6, there's some of the drama that I do enjoy, but there's also a lot of the drama I don't like. I think with where they were storytelling wise, they made the choices that they kind of had to, but there are a lot of sad moments with it. For me, season 6 got a 5.3 for
Yeah.
my rating.
Yeah. Is that higher or lower than you thought?
It's a little bit higher. So, and I'll go over this at the end. I originally put season 6 as my second to least favorite, but it got actually a little bit higher than season 4.
Mm.
So it was my third lowest. And which is funny because if I were to sit and think about season 4 versus season 6, I would
Yeah.
always pick season 4. But I think from episode to episode, there are a lot ones that I dislike more in season 4, and I think just averaging out. That's why these are the two episode or 2 seasons that didn't get a 10. Season 4 and season 6, neither of them got 10s.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I didn't give a 10 to season 6. I gave a 9 to season 7,
Mm-hmm.
but I
Me
technically
too.
didn't give a 10 to season 7 either. So,
I did, but we'll get into that.
yeah, I feel like again with the conflict, I don't love it this season. There's certain things of like I really like Paul Anka. Again, it's just like one of those gut decisions that Lorelai makes, but I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense, and it in a weird way it kind of shows that she can mature, even though it's just like no dog is that quirky. Like you've made this dog this quirky. There's no way.
Right, exactly. Yeah, sometimes I feel like I get a little annoyed with Lorelai and Palenka only because sometimes with Lorelai especially towards this latter half of the show, I feel like they kind of lose her character
Yeah,
a bit.
I agree.
Whereas in the earlier seasons, yes, she's quirky, but it's more about her interests and her references, and then by
Yeah,
the end it's just like everything
everything. Yeah,
is quirky and it's a little too much. So I do love Palenka. I love dogs. I almost wish we got him a little bit earlier on in the
yeah,
show,
agreed.
maybe around season 5 when she was starting to do
That's what I
more
was
of the empty
thinking.
nesting.
Hmm.
But there are some times where I'm like,
Yeah.
this is a little too much.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I like that she has a dog. I think it can show, like I said, like maturity of hers overall. But it
Hmm.
is that like too quirky aspect of it that I don't like.
Hmm.
And again, I feel like in the like lingo of things and the references of things and like the clothing of things. I think that's where you can show a lot of quirky aspects of it. But in, I don't know what to say, not preferences, but just like he can't walk over a puddle. I'm like, girl, that's a dog. Like,
Although my dog is like that. She doesn't like water.
yeah, but your dog is smaller. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
that would look so much bigger. Where Paul Anka is like, dude, you should
Right.
be fine. I don't understand.
Yeah, and that's another part of Fight Face that I don't like, when she is going over all the names of like Pookie and Tukey, and I'm like, why are we doing this bit? It's just so weird.
Yeah.
But
So I think my favorite episode of season 6 is We've Got Magic to Do, even though I don't like a lot of it, to be honest. I think,
oh no.
again, I feel like it's the vibes of that world that Rory creates. I feel like it's I actually really like the Paris aspect of it. Just makes me
Oh, and
laugh,
she
like her. Yeah,
go
like
to
she's
work.
like, I'm gonna work and I also have all these pills. I don't know why, it just made me laugh.
Oh
She's just like hilarious. I love
yeah.
Emily's takedown, obviously.
Queen behavior.
Yeah, and I actually appreciate, this is one of the times where like Rory's freak out and Rory's frustration with her like not mother-in-law, but like basically they're all acting as if it is, showing up unannounced, and just like the entitlement of that's really bugging Rory. And like I feel like that's very valid. I feel like a lot of times Rory's like frustrations are just like, they didn't give me what I wanted. But I feel like this is like one of the times where that same vibe is actually frustrating Rory. And but I actually I don't like a lot of the other aspects of this episode. Like, I don't love
the recital.
Yeah, it's creepy, and the kids are creepy, and I don't
Yeah,
like
I
it.
don't like them
Don't throw glitter
singing,
on
especially
me.
when they go into the crowd and the
Yeah.
join us.
No, I'd rather you didn't. I'd rather you stayed up there. So
Yeah,
I
we're
don't
not
like
joining
that.
you.
Yeah, don't glitterfy me, because that was gonna never come off. But I think, again, because of that Emily takedown, because they finally realize, I feel like for like the first time, I think it's not vindicating, but validating episode of realizing that Lorelai had been right this whole time. And like, what did we agree to do? We basically agreed, because we love our granddaughter, but we just like agreed to allow her to like really go off this path, like a totally different realm of what we had wanted for her, and what maybe would have been best for her if we had just been like, no, you're going to do this thing. And Richard's side of it I like as well. But yeah, I don't love the dance, but I guess just similarly to the previous season with You Jump I Jump Jack, I'm just like focusing it on the thing that I like, and like that's why it's my favorite.
No, I totally get that. I do love a lot of aspects. This was a 5 for me, so kind of middle of the road, because so much of the Luke and Lorelai conflict. So for listeners who may not remember, she doesn't invite him to the recital because she rightfully assumes he won't want to be there, and he's all upset about it. And I'm like, Luke, literally everything about you screams you wouldn't want to go to that.
Yeah.
Don't try to act all whiny because she didn't invite you this one time. And a lot of the recital I don't like. And Kirk's miming is kind of freaky too.
Oh, I blacked that part out. You're so right. Yeah, not a fan of that.
But I do love, like you said, Richard. I really love when he's in the bathroom and confronts Mitchum, and he has that, you crushed that girl. And then his face at the end when he just realizes everything that's wrong. For me, though, my favorite of season 6 is Friday Night's All Right for Fighting. I know we talked a little bit about that at the beginning.
Yeah.
A big chunk of it is that last 5 minutes, because I don't think there is a moment on Gilmore Girls, obviously that's like that, but that just really demonstrates the relationships with these 4 family members as amazing as that scene does. Like, you just feel like you're the 5th member at that Friday night dinner table watching all of this go down. And this isn't just the past 6 months or so. This is years of torment and stress. But then I also love in this episode, just before that, when Logan comes in and helps save the paper. And I
Yeah.
love when he's like, this is how we do it at the Diamond. Like, it gives me chills
Yeah.
every time. And Rory getting to shine in her element, kind of the same way that you talked about in You Jump, I Jump, where she takes control. She's a good leader. They get it done. So I really like that. Obviously, there's some moments with Luke and Lorelai and April, and
It's a
he
rough
doesn't.
season for them, just in
Yeah,
general.
when he doesn't want Lorelai to spend time with April, and she's peering in through the window into the diner, which is kind of heartbreaking. Um, for me, I really like April. I understand where people's frustration with and what it does to Luke and Lorelai's relationship. To me, though, because of what we saw in season 5 and even in the first half of season 6, like in You've Got Magic, I just don't think that we're supposed to really believe that they're going to be a good couple.
Yeah.
So for me, how Luke handled the whole April situation, I'm almost like, well, duh. Like, he's horrible at communicating. She's horrible at communicating. This isn't a surprise to me. It is definitely frustrating because we've already had so much will they, won't they, and now it's fracturing even more. But I think, especially in that episode, it wasn't a 10 for me. I do really like it. I didn't have any 10s for season 6, but the second half of that, the second half of that episode is why it's my favorite. I also rated pretty high The Prodigal Daughter Returns, mostly for the reunion between Lorelai and Rory. One of my favorite scenes.
Yeah.
And I do like Rory's kind of turning it around, and that obviously we're introduced to April in that episode as well. But I think in terms of my favorites this season, I've got those two, with Amy also writing Friday Night's All Right. So we're so far, what is that, 4 Amber that are my favorites, and 3 which were Daniel or 2. So
Yeah.
Clearly I love the Paladinos.
Yeah, I have all 3 of those marked the same. My favorites and then your 2 favorites all marked the same numeral amount. I feel like the other thing, kind of connecting what you were saying, is I feel like the April situation gave Luke the opportunity to step up in a different and new way that we hadn't seen him.
Yes.
And I also feel like when Rory takes over the paper and it feels like it's kind of crumbling and they're trying to put it together, that gives her, and it actually gives Logan as well, the opportunity to step up. And I feel like that's just very interesting to see the different dynamics of that. Whereas Logan's like, you know, I'm a writer, right? I also do this. And then this is how we do it at the Yale Daily News. And like seeing them really try hard versus seeing Luke kind of crumble is just a very different dynamic between the characters. And like not 100% skipping ahead, but a little bit. I feel like the growth that we see of Logan throughout this time period is where in season 7 it feels so disjointed for me. Whereas I feel like you were saying, like, yeah, this makes sense of like Luke's storyline and like him and Lorelai really not communicating well and not being honest with each other in a lot of ways and aspects. I feel like it's not as surprising. It's just like a bummer what happens in between season 6 and 7 and all of that.
Shifting to season 7, we finally made it. Do you want to talk about least favorites for season 7?
My least favorite, it was, not gonna lie, it was kind of hard to pick because there's a few of them that I just don't connect with as much. This is one of the times where I feel like some of the episodes that maybe some of the cozy detectives wouldn't like as much, I did not pick Lorelai and Christopher breaking up as my least favorite because I feel like that kind of pushes the storyline ahead. I did pick The Long Morrow, the first episode, as my least favorite, just because of the aftermath of all of that, of the messiness of it. I don't really understand. And I know this is a very iconic thing of Rory and Logan, and I like it kind of in the lore. I don't really understand the rocket ship. It,
Yeah,
it
I
kind of
get
feels a
that.
little bit like he doesn't understand her as much as I would have wanted him to at that point, maybe because
Mm-hmm.
it should be a reference that like she gets. And I know that he
Yeah.
thinks it is, but it's not. Um, so I feel like Lorelai has to reveal to Luke that it's like kind of heartbreaking for him to, like you were talking about, like process and kind of catch up. Like, why didn't you, like, she literally tells her daughter in earlier seasons, go home, eat your ice cream and cry. I'm like, girl, you should have gone home, eat your
Right.
ice cream and cry. I don't know why you
Yep.
like ran immediately to an ex. So
Yep.
just bums me out and makes me sad. So that was why that's my least favorite. What's
I get
yours?
that. Mine is actually the very next episode
Yeah.
for a lot of those same reasons, but also I really don't like the Asia cultural
Mm.
appropriation stuff that feels like you could have, I feel like, appreciated it a little bit better. To me, it just feels, oh, we're just being, again, that, oh, we're just being quirky, we're dressing up,
Mm.
so that's always kind of made me feel a little type of way, but I don't like how it also starts. And I know a lot of people love when Luke punches Christopher in the
Mm.
face. I don't, because again, this is Luke is supposed to be a grown man.
Mm.
Why? I get that he's hurt. I get that he's mad. First of all, how does he even know where Chris lives? I've never understood that.
No
Maybe
idea.
there's a phone directory or whatever. You can look that up. But he just shows up, punches him, and then leaves. I think that's just it, because especially literally 5 minutes before he drives, he is ready to go marry Lorelai, and then oh, now we're moving to punch him in the face.
I feel like their fight to
Um,
me between the two of them is more cringy than that for some reason. I feel like it's because they're both
yeah.
just
Oh,
like,
I agree with that. I don't like
eh.
that where they're like, and it's silent
Oh,
too,
it's
and
so
they're like
awkward.
wrestling in the square.
Yeah.
I also don't like Luke and Lorelai at the grocery store.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when they cross the street, like I get it. He's
He's going
hurt.
for the
He's right to
jugular.
be, but he is just so mean to her.
Yeah.
I don't like, I really don't like Lane's pregnancy storyline
I
at
don't
all in season
either.
7. And this is where that starts in this episode as well. I really, really don't like when Rory gets super mad at Lorelai when she finds out that she slept with Chris,
Mm.
because I'm like,
Girl.
girlfriend,
Yeah.
you have no room to talk. You slept with a married
Yep.
man.
Yep. Yep.
Technically, neither of them were like, yes, right after
Like
breaking up, that's
technically
not a
they were
smart
broken
move.
up. It's just
Yes,
like, girl, go home, eat your ice cream and cry. Don't go
right,
like, yeah,
exactly. But in
but
terms
not
of
married.
what Rory did versus what
Yeah.
Lorelai did,
Yeah.
I think Rory's is worse. So it really frustrates me that Rory is on some like morally superior pedestal in
Yeah.
her mind compared to her mom. And I'm like, girl, you have no room to talk.
Yep.
So this actually is my least favorite episode in the entire show
Yeah,
for a lot of reasons.
it was kind of hard to pick my least favorite, unfortunately, in this season because it does feel so different. And I feel like we've taken that quirky nature again, even more of a notch up with things.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're, I don't know how to like say it in like the kindest way possible, but it feels like we're losing some of the character aspects of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of the decisions, like, I guess some of it, like whether we would agree with them or not, like makes sense for them. But then some of them, whether we would agree with it or not, just like don't make sense for them.
Right.
And so, yeah, that was kind of, this season's a little rough for me overall.
Yeah. It was predicted to be my least favorite. I think too, with losing Amy, the writing and a lot of the dialogue feels so different. One that always stands out to me where I can really see the difference when they're talking about the ice hotel and Lorelai just goes on the, this is ice, this is ice, this is ice. And I'm like, Lorelai wouldn't be that repetitive in
Yeah.
just like a random sentence. So that is where, and this happens quite frequently in season
Yeah.
7, where it's like, and this is obviously what was happening behind the scenes, but it feels like
Where are we walking?
almost as, yeah, where are we going? And obviously it's someone trying to be Amy,
Yeah,
but
that's
it
hard.
almost at times feels like they took the first 6 seasons. Obviously, ChatGPT didn't exist at the time, but a lot of
Yeah.
season 7 feels like they ran it through AI, and that's where we got.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. And then we also get the whole Chris scenario in this season. And
Mhm.
again, I feel like we kind of did that previously in season 2, where like the kind of, is this going to happen aspect of things? And then they get married. And I don't know.
Yeah, I don't necessarily dislike their storyline for the first few episodes of season 7 because to me it makes sense. I don't agree with it, but it makes sense character wise that Lorelai turned to him. I
Yeah.
feel like she tends to do that after a breakup. What really, and even getting married, I can buy into. What I really don't like about that is them not bringing Rory there.
Yeah.
I
Agreed.
I will never understand or believe a world in which Lorelai does not have her daughter at their way, because
Yeah.
even when they were at their lowest, when she was engaged to Luke, she was
She
like,
pushed
I
the
won't
wedding
even
off.
set, yeah, she's like, I
Yeah.
won't even set a wedding date
Yeah.
until things are right. There's no world where her parents get married without her there.
Yeah.
So that I really don't like.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about earlier with some of the decisions make sense for the character. We just don't agree with it. But then some of the decisions just don't make sense for the character. And I feel like that's one of those where I feel like Lorelai wouldn't agree with Lorelai. Like, I
Yeah.
just feel like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. What's your favorite for season 7?
My favorite, I think, might be your favorite. It's Bon Voyage. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. And it's interesting because for me, if I had just looked at this season as like an outside perspective, I don't know if I would have picked Bon Voyage. I feel like there's some other episodes I really like as well. Like I actually really do like Hey Bale Maze. I feel like it's a good
Hmm.
episode for Rory and Logan. I feel like it's nice to see the okay, we kind of forgive each other. We're gonna kind of move on between Luke and Lorelai. But I feel like Bon Voyage is a really nice ending. It's kind of like in the moment where we're at in the show, I don't know if I can particularly like I haven't sat down and tried to think of a different ending like in that moment,
Hmm.
but I don't know if I can think of one that makes more sense than this. I feel like we put Rory back on the path of like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. Like that's where like a year in the life makes no sense to me because if she's on the campaign trail of a president that wins, why would you have
Right.
nothing after that? I feel like
Right.
we do get the Luke and Lorelai like they're going to be back together, which is again why the A Year in the Life of like the Will They Won't They is still there, which I'm like, boo. Like I don't love
Right.
that. Because like again, you're even more mature now and like you still don't know what's going on. Like so confusing to me. But I like that the town is all together. I like that we get the like last scene together of Lorelai and her parents. I
Hmm.
feel like that's really nice and like Richard's tear up moment, like that is a moment I remember crying. Like
Yeah, and that's his last
yeah.
scene in the whole show. Ugh.
Yeah.
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 I
What
know
what
this is controversial because this is my favorite episode of the entire show and it's season 7. I get it. Um but like I kind of said with Wedding Bell Blues, this episode has everything that I love about Gilmore Girls. And as a finale, yes, I think it's beautifully done and ending the show really well. But just as an episode, it gives us everything that we could want. We
Yeah.
get Luke and Lorelai moments. We get really great Emily, Richard, Lorelai moments.
Yeah.
The scene where they're ironing clothes, or well, they're ironing clothes and they're like, I can't say goodbye
Ugh,
yet. If we
brutal.
do our goodbyes, then I'll break down. But then when they're about to leave for Luke's and she's like, Mom, you've given me everything I need.
So
Like
good. So
that
good.
is that is the show. And like I still every time I watch this will tear up in specifically that scene sometimes, but what always gets me is when they show up to the surprise party and they pan to like everyone and I'm gonna like cry talking about it because it's like
Yeah.
this town loves them so much.
Yeah.
And I think that episode just conveys the relationship with the town, and it's them coming together. When Luke stays up all night to sew the tent,
Yeah.
I love that. I even love the Christian Amanpour cameo. I know some
Yeah.
people find it cringy, but I love, because that comes up in the second episode when she sits down with the headmaster of like, this is who I want to be. And she finally gets to be her role model. Like you said, she gets to have this incredible job opportunity
Yeah.
in journalism. I honestly, like, I know some people really dislike that they break up in the episode before to an ultimatum, but I love that Rory is starting post college life single. I think she's going to get to do a lot of growth that obviously is taken away in a year in
Yeah.
the
We just
life.
ignore that
But
certain aspect.
and then the fact that it ends with the exact same
Yeah.
shot of the
Yeah.
ending of the pilot, like the bookends
Yeah.
of that, I just love so much. We see the full growth of Emily and Richard and Lorelai to where they're like, well, why don't you just, like, we can just discuss it over Friday night dinner.
Yeah.
And I love how Emily is trying so hard to keep Lorelai in her life. She's like, oh, you can expand the inn, which ends up being what happens in a year in
Yeah.
the life. But I love, there's not a scene in that episode that I don't like. And I know it's controversial. It's season 7. It's written by David S. Rosenthal. I get it that it's controversial, but if you sit down with fans of the show and you like say, what about this episode do you not like? I'm like, you can't really pick out too much. And I get it that Amy's not there, but I just don't think that there's anything to dislike about this episode, personally.
Yeah. I think that's where, again, if you had asked me what my favorite episode was of this season, I don't know if I would have said that, because
Mm-hmm.
it's also like, I think that like emotional of like, this is it. Like for like until
Yeah.
2016, like that was all we had. There was no more episodes after that. I feel like it hurts in
Yep.
that way, and like you want more episodes.
That
So I
makes
think that
sense.
can lead into not liking the episode as much, because again, you want next week there to be another one. But I think
Mm-hmm.
this might be controversial, this might not, but I think looking at the endings that we got, I think I like Bon Voyage's
Oh,
ending a lot
yep.
better,
I
because
think that's the majority of the
okay, because I'm
fandom.
like I know that
Yeah.
Amy wanted that, but I think this is where it's hard, because I think if Amy had got that at the end of the series, I don't I don't know if that would have been the bookend that we would have loved as much as this bookend, because
Mm-hmm.
jumping all the way back when Mrs. Kim is talking to Lorelai and she's like, I don't want Lane ending up like you. Lorelai is like, oh, I don't want Rory ending up like me. And so I think that's where it's like
Mm-hmm.
hard to be like, oh, well, Rory like is going to be like, I've seen like a fan, which I've said this before, but I've seen a fan ending where a totally different ending is that like Lorelai's
I know
standing.
what you're talking about.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Lorelai's standing at the dragonfly. If the cozy detectives don't know, Lorelai's standing at the dragonfly. There's a knock on the door. She opens the door,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a girl standing there with a baby and says, like, hey, do you have a room? Or something like that. Like that type of a circle of like, now Lorelai gets to be the mentor. She gets to like be
Yeah, the
somebody to
Mia.
help. Yeah, be the Mia to help like raise this girl to be like, you know what I mean? Like that version of a circle, I think I like a little bit more than like the
Agreed.
ending that we
Than Team
got.
Rory.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But to stick to the original, I feel like this ending I was also happy with. Like I was happy that like Rory like figured it out. Now, when I originally watched the show, it didn't make sense to me that her and Logan like shouldn't say yes to that, because I think you could have had a very long engagement. I don't think you had to get married within the next
Mm-hmm.
6 months or anything. But also I could see her saying, no, I don't really want that right now. Like against the same ultimatum thing. Like, why are we doing the ultimatum thing again?
Right.
So I feel like if they had just kept dating, maybe they would have gotten engaged later on. Or like in my mind's eye, if we only have 3 to choose from, I feel like later on, even though we do see Jess's growth as a character, I feel like her and Logan, and the amount that we've seen Logan grow, especially to bring him back to Stars Hollow and do the hay bale maze, it just felt like a little disjointed for me to like just have
Right.
them like break up and never get back together. But I don't really like the get back together that we got in A Year in the Life. So I mean,
Yeah.
we're fully swimming in Gilmore Girls now. So if you're new to this show, I'm so sorry.
I don't
But
think anyone who's listened this
this
far
long,
in
yeah.
has not watched it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I also, one last thing that I will say in terms of, because you mentioned like the emotional beats and why that's hard. I think for me, that's why I love it so
Mm-hmm.
much, because an episode as much as I've watched the show and as much as I've seen it, that can make me at least
Yeah.
tear up. Even just thinking about it, I think is really powerful. And obviously, like, I have a lot of feels. And maybe I would feel different when I first, because this is one that I did watch live.
Yeah,
I
me
don't
too.
remember it being like, oh my God, I love it, because it was sad that it was over.
But I wasn't
But
mad
because
at
we
the
had it,
ending by any
yeah.
means.
Yeah. And I know some people may not like a perfectly tied up finale with a little bow on it, but I do. I
Yeah.
want my show to end on a good
Yep.
note. I don't feel like there's that many shows that have a strong finale.
Yeah.
Thinking of Game of Thrones, but I
Yeah.
just really like that it just encaptures every element of Gilmore Girls that I love.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing as well. Like, having never even seen Game of Thrones, I know that that ending was not what the fans wanted. And it's like, I feel like if you haven't seen
Yeah,
Gilmore Girls, you don't really hear that same feeling about the season 7 ending. Or like maybe we were sad that
more
it ended,
so the
but we
year in the
weren't
life.
really
Mm-hmm.
frustrated on how it ended because it did,
Right,
like, in our minds, Luke and Lorelai do get back together. It's not a wedding, but like you have this feeling like they are going to make it work and figure it out. Like
right.
Rory has her thing. Like it just, the town, like you are able to see all of the characters in this town that you love. Like you were saying earlier about like panning
Mm-hmm.
across to everybody, and like everybody kind of has their moment, and it is like a nice kind of like, and I love that. I actually love even the name of it, of Bon Voyage, of like even to the
Right.
fans,
The
like it felt
next
kind of a
chapter.
love letter to
Mm-hmm.
like, we know that you've loved this show so much, so we're gonna end it the same way that it started, even with that ending shot. So
Yeah. And I love also even just like the scene of Lane and Rory
yeah,
on the porch, because I feel like we lose so much of Lane in season 7, but just over the course of the show, like Lane is such an afterthought. So I really like that we got to see them being best friends again, because we hadn't really seen that since the earlier season.
yeah,
So I also really appreciated they included that. Um, yeah, I really, really, really love this episode.
me too.
But it's always so funny because I will start telling people, I'm like, yeah, my favorite episode is 7. And they're like, what? But I'm just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It does something for me. But overall, with season 7, I do think that David Rosenthal did the best that he could given the
That's a,
circumstances. Like,
it's hard
obviously,
to walk into that ending of
right.
season 6. Like, oh, where are we going? What's
Right.
happening?
Yeah. I think he wrapped it up. Obviously, it's overall more liked as a finale than what Amy created. Obviously, season 7 has a lot of low points. It doesn't have that Amy sparkle. I think he was able to capture a lot of the charm in certain moments. I personally don't think season 7 is as bad as some people make it out to be. Like, I know there's people that just don't watch season 7 at all, which is not the case for me. I will always include it in my rewatches, but I do think there are a lot of unlikable moments and unlikable episodes. It's really interesting because 7, if you hadn't pieced it together, season 7 has my very, very bottom episode, but also my very, very top. So it is a wide,
Yeah.
wide range for me. What are your overall season 7 thoughts?
I think thinking about it now, like in the time of watching it, I didn't know. Like I wasn't that
Hmm.
far enough into it to know
True,
who the writer
same.
was or
Hmm.
wasn't. So to
I
me,
don't think I realized that until like years
yeah.
later.
Yeah. So for me, it was again like that ending, which I think is like where like I anchored the season at that ending, because even speaking of like bringing back the Game of Thrones of it, I feel like if the ending ends up being not what you were hoping as a fan, it kind of like messes with the rest of the season in your mind. And so I
Hmm.
feel like there was a lot of not loved parts of this season for me, like the whole Christopher, the getting married, that doesn't quite make sense to me as like a character of
Right.
Lorelai. Like I could see her running to him in a moment. Do I see her getting married to him? No, I don't really
Right.
see that. But I feel like I don't dislike it as much as maybe some other fans do, probably because I wasn't aware of that for a while. Now,
Hmm.
again, the Amy Sparkle is like definitely a real thing, I feel like, in the show, which is thinking about it overall in my rankings. The first, let me double check on this. Yes, the first season was my number 1. The third season was my number 2. And the second season was my number 3, which is kind of hard to like walk through. But those seasons are the ones I rewatch more. Like I'll
Hmm.
rewatch through it, yes, but my like walk back to episode after episode is seasons 1, 2, and 3. But again, I don't think season 7 was as bad as people have said. Like I have everything from a 2 to a 9. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I overall my season 7 rating was a 4.8, so it did put it at the bottom for me, but actually just a hair below season 4. So what ended up being, let me move this over, but what ended up being my updated rating based on this
Yeah.
format was season 7 at the bottom, then 4, 6, 3, 1, 2, 5. So
Mhm.
I predicted pretty close to this. So essentially 2 and 5 swapped places, and then 4 got pushed to the 4 and 6 swapped places, but everything else was kind of predicted as the same. But like if you were to ask me overall, like what would be my favorite, I don't think I would gut reaction say season 5. I would probably lean towards 2 or even 1. But I think doing it this way and breaking down very like mathematically
Yeah.
was really cool to kind of see how overall we approach the seasons.
Yeah, it was fun. I definitely like clearly got confused at some points and reading this back, but season 7 was my numerical least favorite, but I think if it's so interesting because season 6 scored nearly a full point higher than season 7, but I think in
Mm-hmm.
thinking about the drama overall of season 6 and season oh my goodness, season 6 and season 7, I think I would have put them closer in my brain than they
Mm-hmm.
were in looking at the numbers of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, like we talked about last time, our 2% this episode is our encouragement of watching your favorite episodes of Gilmore Girls. Definitely let us know what those are. We'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. And follow us on Instagram at Blanket Fort Files Pod. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. We'd appreciate your feedback. So please leave us a review. It helps us out so much. And join us next week in the Blanket Fort, where we'll discuss how to stay cozy when you're going back to school.
I'm excited. It feels the vibes of going back to school, especially right now.
Super fall.
Oh, yes, the clothing.
Going back to
Going back
Chilton.
to Chilton.
Prepping.